All right, here we go. Book Synopsis 2 video. Shaking off all of the energy. Or more so integrating with the energy that I feel right now regarding this book. In this moment, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling like I want to break free from the walls that I'm currently living in. I'm living with my parents right now. I'm living quite literally in a space where I recognize the old patterns. I recognize the old ways. I recognize certain situations and energies that may be holding me back. At the same time, even just in the first few months of me living back at my parents', I knew and had a feeling that my root, my sacral, and my solar were being called to come back here. And as uncomfortable as it was, as much as I knew that this was a pattern that kept on coming, I knew that just as in my journey I had focused solely on my top chakras, they came easy to me. I'm a triple air sign. I loved living in the clouds. I loved tapping out, being like, nope, I don't want to be here anymore. But I'm here, and I'm meant to be here on this earth for a reason. And ways to ground my energy, ways to help my root. As an Aquarius, I'm ruled by the root chakra. What helps all of the energies that naturally flow is to stay rooted in myself. So I was being called back to my parents to strengthen my root and recognize where my root was in need of healing, where my passion was in need of healing, and where my self-love was in need of healing. And what manifested physically for me in my body was my solar, my self-love area. That was a physical manifestation that was screaming out to me that needed help and love. And by strengthening all the other areas and energy centers of my body and continuing on this journey that sometimes can be uncomfortable, it's also been super freeing. And coming back to John Bradshaw's Homecoming, all my little stickies, the child self that began this journey wanted to be perfect and wanted to write all of these notes, like literally endless. Some of them are on my phone. It was almost like, if I didn't take all these notes, then I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to do it right. I'm not going to say what I need to say. Well, I'm just authentically going to tell you what I think about this and maybe just skim through these notes, because I know that the healing that I'm doing comes from within, and the knowledge that is being brought forth through this book is knowledge that I've always known. I've always talked about how important it is to stay connected with your child self. And throughout my life, I've imagined like a human, let's say they're like 35, and I imagine like a child over here, and there's like a string attached to that, and they're like over here, but they're like way over here, like almost on another planet over here. And then there's like some people, painters, artists, music artists, you know, whoever it may be that represents that, whether that's yourself or looking at someone else in the need of wanting to become your own version of what that means for you. And I say you as in me, becoming my own version of what that means for me. Let me rephrase, go back a little bit. And sometimes I see people's like inner child like right here and the string is really short, and other people, I almost feel like the string is broken off and there's nothing on the other side. And I've seen that in people all my life, but not until April of 2022 was I fully aware that I was one of those people whose string had broken. And in 2020, the first thing that I noticed, the first veil that dropped for me was Save the Children, the movement. I went down the ultimate rabbit hole for months looking at the darkest of conspiracy theories and just seeing the pain and the hurt and the loss of the child self. And there was a part of me that was awakening and a part of me that was seeing truths in our reality, in my reality, seeing how much of the inner child collectively needed help, and my body and mind were only recognizing the most excruciating parts of my reality because that's all I was used to. That's all I grew up recognizing. I only recognized fight, flight, or freeze. So when my third eye was opening, it was opening to the darkness. It was opening up to just such deep sadness and dark energy. And I came to find, magically in a sense, my intuitive abilities started to open up. And I started to have vivid dreams. And some of them were nightmarish. I grew up with nightmares. Now I know that they were just signs. They were just my subconscious manifesting in dreams. They were other energies even manifesting in dreams. The energy of the place where I grew up. The energies that were in constant trauma, whether that's me and my sisters, my dad, my mom, myself. And there was no wonder that my sister was seeing witches at night, that I was seeing dark demonic energies in my dream state, because they were quite literally being manifested. And throughout the beginning of my journey, I began to understand myself on an astrological level, and I still am, and it's still a beautiful journey to go on. The first few realizations were through the moon, because that's where I feel the strongest connection. And I was born under a balsamic phase, which is almost fully covered in darkness. There's only just a little sliver. Of moon. And that little sliver of moon is still there. There's still light there. But just like one of my absolute favorite quotes is, the wound is where the light enters. And it's almost as if I needed to go through the polarity of seeing the darkness in order to recognize the light, and transmuting my story, transmuting that energy, and finding peace in knowing that all versions of myself have led me to this place, and owning my birthright and stepping into that birthright, which I'm doing now. I'll just skim through. That was just kind of the intro. Just talking about contaminant, codependence, offender behaviors, narcissistic disorders, trust issues, acting out, acting in behaviors, magical beliefs, intimacy dysfunctions, non-disciplined behaviors, addictive compulsive behaviors, thought distortions, and emptiness. These are all things that can happen when the child self endures trauma. And, you know, there's an adaptation to stress. And due to that adaptation, I know personally for me and my story, in order to survive my childhood, I quite literally left my body often and really wasn't there. There are a lot of memory gaps. I'm filling in the blanks, and there have been so many helpful tools throughout this book that go through reclaiming each part of my child self. First, the infant child self, then the toddler child self, the preschool child self, the school age, middle school child self, the adolescent child self, and then welcoming them back as with the current self that I am now. And the author John Bradshaw, I believe he has since passed, but he would refer to himself as a wizard. And for me, the word that was coming up was like a goddess. And every single time, now I've reclaimed so far my infant self. And in that meditation, which I did about 3 times before it felt right, you know, right in the sense of, she's here with me. My I amness is coming back because of that. And it's a beautiful feeling. And yeah, it just talks about through each phase what is lost and what can be regained, what's developed during those stages, and if trauma does happen, what parts of that growth can or have been hindered, and that growth, if it has stopped, and how to regain that growth. And some of the coolest tools that I found were like grounding tools, anchoring tools when triggered, what to do, what to think of, and meditations that help rewire the experience, almost in a sense where first there's meditations to feel what happened and to process those feelings completely. Like, say, I know for me, I grew up in a family where feelings may have been brushed under the rug, and not even on purpose, but more so for me personally, in order to survive, being the mediator, being the peacemaker, being the person that just wanted everything to be exactly perfect. Like, okay, I'm gonna go make my sister's beds so that like their rooms aren't messy, and I'm gonna help my mom with laundry and help her fold, and then I'm gonna get all my homework done and help with dinner so that like no one can be frustrated or mad. But did that end up actually saving anyone? Did that end up keeping my parents from fighting and having my dad abuse my mom, or walking downstairs and seeing, you know, the table being broken and a TV being broken? No, it didn't. It didn't stop any of those things. So knowing and processing those feelings and bringing them to completion so that I'm not reliving those patterns in an attempt to complete those feelings and never having them completely met, has been such a rewarding experience. And I'm not trying to rush this experience, because that's most of my life has been in fight, flight, or freeze. And so I recognize now and am able to hold space for myself in not rushing this process, and in knowing that in divine timing, I will heal when I'm supposed to, and that the journey of it is here, and I'm here for it, and I'm arriving for it, and I'm excited about it. And I'll be honest, there are parts of me that are super frustrated because all I want to do is get out of this house. It doesn't mean that I'm not appreciative of the roof over my head, for some of the free meals that I get that I can then eat that are healthy and that align with the health journey that I'm going through. It doesn't mean that I'm not thankful to have my sister bring her niece over. It just means that I need my own space to heal. I need my own space to be who I am, and there's nothing wrong with that. So with that being said, just sifting through some of these notes here, just going to touch on anything that calls out. Yeah, truly. I think one of the coolest things is affirmations for different parts of the child self, and writing a letter to your child self with your dominant hand, and then writing a letter to your, like being your inner child with your non-dominant hand. And wow, it really brought up some intense feelings. It really did. Like that version of myself was really calling out to me and saying, I need you. I don't want to be alone. Come and find me. I'm here and I'm waiting. And it's interesting because, especially at the beginning of my journey and continuing, a lot of the most profound messages that come through are through my childhood experiences. One of them being through one of my absolute favorite movies, The Land Before Time. And I was so moved by the messages that were coming through and the feelings of just innate love that I get every single time that I watch it, that I got a tattoo of, let your heart be your guide, it whispers, so listen closely, with the Littlefoot, because like that's me. Like I am Littlefoot. I am that little dinosaur that experienced the abandonment of his mother, maybe in a different way, but man, just the journey to the Great Valley and the messages that come through. Before Littlefoot's mom passes, she says, we must follow the great circle every day as it rises and as it falls, and following the great circle along the horizon. And Littlefoot goes, well, how do you know that the Great Valley exists? And she said, some things you see with your eyes, and other things you see with your heart. And I feel that so strongly, so strongly. And it's like that message has always been calling out to me. And as I started my healing journey, that inner child voice became louder and louder and louder, and it's here, and she's here, and I'm here. And I'm excited to bring all of those versions of my child self together and integrate them into who I am now, and welcoming her with open, loving arms and being my adult parent. And not sitting in the sadness, allowing myself to process that sadness, but not sitting in it and allowing it to control my presence and my life. And knowing when to hold on and when to let go. I recently read near the end of the book that there was a time in the author's life where, when he was about 12 years old, he was waiting at the bus stop, and all of a sudden this realization poured over him, and he was like, there's no one like me. There's no one that sees the world the way that I see the world. I am exactly who I am, and there will never be another one of me. And I remember feeling that very, very early on, and not feeling like it was like a I'm better than everyone else kind of feeling, but like just a very warm feeling. And yes, there were times in my life where I fell off of that feeling, where that feeling faded in and out. I remember it being really strong when I was around 4 or 5, where I would just get on the reclining chair at my grandma's and belt out My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion and living my best life and just singing and being who I was and not apologizing for it. And then I remember it coming back in high school. Even though I feel like parts of it were a false sense of myself, there were parts of me that really truly felt like I was individually me. And by doing that, I look back at Facebook memories of videos that I sent to people on Facebook, just like dancing to Billy Joel and being crazy, or like rapping my favorite song or whatever it was, and seeing how many video responses I got back authentically from everyone else because they felt my authentic self coming through was magical. I remember, I look back and I'm like, how did I get up in front of the entire school at every single pep rally, at every single football game, at every single basketball game, and fly up in the air as a cheerleader on one leg? Like, what? If my child self had been told that that's something I would do in high school, I would have laughed, because I found so much confidence and so much authenticity in high school, which sometimes can be rare. I know a lot of people are like, oh shit, like my high school days were, and there were ups and downs, but it was truly a magical time because I feel like I was tapping into parts of my true child self. And I would wear bright clothes despite the Catholic school uniform. And yeah, I just look back and I'm like, I'm tapping back into versions of myself and letting go of the parts that don't serve me and didn't serve me. And yeah, part of that realization of feeling like, okay, I'm me and there's no one else like me. Like, yes, there are times when I feel alone, but more and more I recognize that there's a place within me, and a divine place, knowing that there is more. There is a higher divine presence that is always here. And it's within me. It's within my DNA. And I don't feel as alone. I don't feel as alone knowing that there's an OBI community that is going through this very thing in their own individualized way. And I feel empowered in this moment, reclaiming parts of myself that were lost. And yes, I'm processing the mourning of that, but I'm also recognizing the triumph and making my mess my message, knowing that being diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2017 and being diagnosed with lupus in 2020, like, I literally have a smile on my face. I wouldn't have been that way even just a year ago. I'm sitting in the uncomfortable parts of myself because they are the parts of me that are freeing me. Some may label me as bipolar, but to me, I feel by the moon. The moon moves every 2.5 days into a sign. I feel it every single time. And to ride those waves sometimes isn't easy, but I recognize it now and I own it now, and I am okay with that. integrating my ego with my soul is what I'm doing and what I'm continuing to do. And man, it's been a journey. But I'm here and I'm present for that journey. And this book has been a saving grace. And so has One Breath Institute. And so has the darkest parts of my journey. I look back and think I wouldn't want it any other way. Truly. I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm ready and showing up, and yeah, that's my book synopsis number 2.